Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go.
Hello, everybody. Let's see. Facebook is once again playing with the system. But in the meantime, this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm here with the No Soundbites Allowed Simulcast for Saturday. That is Saturday, the September 15th. And I'm happy to be here with everybody. I don't know if everyone's going to hear this because, again, Facebook has just gone and told me that there is a issue with the signal, which there never is an issue with the signal in this area. But suddenly, whenever I want to do a podcast, they interrupt the signal and make it difficult for people to hear this because, of course, they hate seeing anybody talk about conservative issues, which has been something I've been talking about for a long time, and I'll get into that in 1 second. But I do want to thank everyone for being here, and I see Ron Stafford's here with us. Hey, Ron, good to see you. I'm glad that you made it through the Facebook censors there. And I apologize, by the way, for folks. I know this is starting a little bit later than it normally is. That's just because I was at an event earlier. I'm setting up a time. There's a certain politician who's running, is in the election coming up in November. And I was setting a time to try and have an interview with them so that voters will be able to have direct information, not just TV commercials, but actually hear from the candidate, learn about the issues that are out there, and be able to get real answers direct from the horse's mouth, so to speak, to know exactly what they're doing for the issues to let you have a better life and raise the quality of life. So that's an important issue. It's always important, and that's something I was working on. So that's why I started a little bit late. But making sure voters know what is going on is one of the most important things that I can do, and that's why I'm happy to do it. By the way, I also say hello to TJ Keegan. He's on as well. And so a few people are getting through the Facebook censors that have limited this. So I'm glad to hear that. And that's always important. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things. And I kind of rushed in, so I'm not quite set up on exactly how I wanted to do this today. But that's okay. We're just going to wing it a little bit. So I hope you'll all bear with me as I go through the process and get myself kind of set and situated, because I didn't want to take away time from being able to answer your questions and to talk with you, because that's the most important thing. Besides being able to give information and make sure that I know the information to give with you, is also to be able to answer your questions. And I love that. And I see Eric Kleem is with us as well. And I'm glad to see you here and get through the Facebook censors. In fact, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, the first thing I want to say is I want to give my condolences to the family of the Ruddles. They are a friend of mine recently lost his father. It was rather sudden, and I want to give condolences to him and his entire family and all of their friends on their loss. It was unexpected, and I am sorry to hear that, and so I did want to mention that in case he's listening. In addition, I want to go in, and I see Chris Rodling has joined us as well. So there's a lot of issues that I wanted to go over in this. It's been a very busy week. If some people may have noticed on my Facebook, I just got back from being over at the New York Air Show, which is at Stewart Air Force Base. We have a wonderful, I have several videos featuring the A-10 Warthog, the F-16, and the F-18, and an exclusive interview with Major Collins of the Thunderbirds. Lots of pictures of some of the exclusive video of some of the planes that were flying that won't be flying otherwise. Hey, Stephen Allstat, I'm glad to see you there. Haven't seen you for a while. And Kevin Dyer's here. So yeah, we're going to have video out of the A-10s flying around, the Flying Fortress, the B-25, some of the F-16s and the Thunderbirds, and some of their material. So I'm putting that video together so people will be able to see that. So if you don't get down to the New York Air Show, which is at Stewart Air Force Base, which, believe it or not, is in Orange County, and it's right next door to the Orange County Choppers, which I didn't know. I mean, they are literally right next door to them. And I had dropped in, and you may have seen some of my photos there, especially with the 911 dedication bike. So that's on my Facebook as well. We weren't able to get any of the OCC guys to get on camera. We just didn't have enough time, but we're looking forward to doing that. But I was over in the Air Force Base, and so we were able to get that exclusive press coverage over the last 2 days, right next to, and literally I'm touching an A-10 Warthog. You know, I'm touching the F-16 and the F-18, and I'm talking to Major Collins, one of the pilots, and actually a couple of pilots of the F-18s as well. It's a wonderful experience. There's some of the C-17 and C-130s. These are incredible planes. I mean, the scale, the size. I can tell you that being up against the C-130 Super Galaxy, I am about 5'10", 5'11". I walked right up. The wheel is half my body size. And I can walk right into that wheel well, and literally I can walk right into it, and it's my height. That just gives you an idea of how huge these things are. And if you get an opportunity to go down to see the New York Air Show, you're going to be impressed. To be next to these planes, to see how huge they are, to see how impressive, how well molded they are, to see some of the pilots there. I mean, they're not young. Most of these guys are majors in the Air Force, and they're roughly in their 30s. They have about 200 or more, actually more hours of flight time. They've been all around the world. Many of them have just come over from over in Afghanistan, flying missions over there, as they were telling me. They look incredibly young. And I can tell you that when I got a chance to look into a cockpit of a couple of the planes, a couple of the fighter planes, you'd be amazed, not only on how much technology is there. I mean, this is just surrounding you with like more buttons and consoles than you could possibly imagine. It's just insane amount of technology and wires all over the place. But I looked in, there's like no room for your legs. There's no room for your feet. There's just no room for anything. You're just stuck in there. I at my height, at about 5'10" and a half, 5'11", I was looking like, how can I fit in there? Because there's just no room. It is amazing. And some of these guys are like 6'2", 6'1". There is a limit at 6'3", because anything above that is just, you're too big to be able to fit in there. It's just that small, which is really surprising, because you look at movies and you think, well, they got room to move around. No, they don't. No, these guys are in this little, very cramped space that's really tight, and I don't know how they do it, especially when they're pulling, as I found out, somewhere between 7, 8, 9 Gs in some of these turns they're doing. It's really impressive. And wow, listening to the sonic booms as they're passing by, it was impressive. So I do recommend, if you can get down to the New York Air Show, get on down there, check it out. It's in Orange County. I had a great time. Wonderful experience. And I'm going to get the video of many of the in conversations I had there, including my conversation, an exclusive conversation with the county executive of Orange County, which is Stephen Newhouse. And I screwed up his name when I was talking to him, and it's in the video, so I'll let you see it. But I was very tired. We had been running around all day in the sun, and I was a little bit dehydrated, and I screwed up his name. But I got to talk to the county executive of Orange County, talking about a couple of the big issues, how the show is going to do, the economy, a couple of things. So that's also going to be some of the video that I'll be, once I'm done with the podcast for today, I'll be back on the videos, getting that set, and then the article will come out. So that's a little bit of stuff. And Scott mentioned that he's thanking me for a tag, and yes, that would be at Stewart's Air Force Base. So the entire event is there. It's today and tomorrow. It's open to the public now. Thursday and Friday was just for the press. It was exclusive. You had to get your credentials approved to get into the event. So it was, again, a nice thing to have my press credentials approved and recognized. And I was a handful of people. And actually, yesterday, it was mostly overcast down in Orange County at Stewart Air Force Base. And so most of the news media left. Now, it's a 2.5-hour ride that I went through to get there. And we stuck around, and we were doing, and I was doing this with the Liberty First Foundation, I should mention, which I'm the New York New York chapter president. And I was there with the Liberty First Foundation, and that's their actual website is libertyfirstfoundation.com. Please do check it out. They're advocates of our rights, the Constitution, the amendments, and then especially the Second Amendment. And I was with them, and we went down there, and we got a lot of great footage, and most of the media weren't there, so they didn't get like the landing of the A-10 Warthog and some other information that we got there. So it was very, very exclusive, and pretty much none of the media have that exclusively. They just have it with crowds today. I see that Scott mentions that I've driven by Stewart's many times, and the planes are massive. Oh, yes, they are. And I think you'll see the scale of it when you get to see the video of how massive this is. It's just mind-blowing, and it's impressive. Really impressive. So I want to speak a little bit about that. And that's why I'm a little bit tired, if you notice. And I've been a little bit quiet the last couple of days as a lot of news has been going on, because I've been taking care of a lot of that. But there are a couple of other issues. And of course, anyone has a question, I'm always happy to answer your questions. As long as we can fight through the censors at Facebook, we'll be able to have a conversation. And I think I may have mentioned that was it this Monday? Yes, it was this Monday that I was at the SUNY Broome College, and I was speaking for the crowd there, a small group of SUNY Broome College students and some of the members of the public were invited in, and I gave a presentation about our freedom of speech. It's a major issue. And I have video of my entire speech, and also there's a transcript of everything that was in the speech. So if you want to read it, or if you want to watch it, either way, you'll be able to learn about the censorship that we're seeing happening right now. And a lot of people have been wondering about it. It's like, are we being censored? Are we seeing Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google? Are they picking and choosing people who can speak, and picking and choosing the way that they censor people and how they're censoring them, and how they're having errors here and there that, oops, we're sorry, 600,000 people no longer get to have their voice out there. Everyone else can talk, but 600,000 people who happen to be, just by accident, on the right and conservatives, well, you can't hear from them. They even denied, and this is Twitter that did this, Twitter built a program that actively censored 600,000 users, including members of Congress, talking to their constituents about the laws and the bills that are affecting them every day. And it was Twitter that said, oops, that was an accident. Come on, let's be real, folks. They built the program. They had designers who programmed it, planned it, programmers that wrote the program, and then they had to install and implement the program. And they had this out there for God knows how many years before it got caught. Last year, at the end of right about the same time now, about a year ago, they finally got caught suppressing the freedom of speech that they are giving to all the others. And this isn't I don't want it to sound like this is a left and right thing, but that's how they're doing it. They actively are suppressing anyone with a conservative or right-leaning view in favor of those with the left-leaning view. By definition, if you're taking away half of the people speaking, the other half of the people are being promoted. So they're actively promoting the left and the far left by denying people on the right opportunity to speak, including the people who are making the laws and speaking to their constituents about the issues. And I find it very interesting. I mean, on my Twitter account, I constantly see things from Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator for New York. I constantly see things from Charles Schumer. I constantly see things from Governor Cuomo. But now I have to wonder, gee, why don't I hear anything else? Maybe it's because Twitter made another error and are actively suppressing anyone else's comments, including my own, when they come out and say, wait a minute, you're telling me that the red flag laws are going to protect us, except you're leaving out the fact that it takes away children from families and it denies people their Second Amendment and due process. Well, that's not actually true. You got to get the truth here. And they're denying that. Or someone, you listen to them say, Governor Cuomo, he's standing up for all of New York. What a great guy. Look at his debate. Meanwhile, he didn't talk about upstate New York and could care less. He tells people that, I'm not going to run in 2020, yet his very same next breath says, but I might run for 2020 as president, because that's what he really cares about. And if I'm not allowed to say, hey, you know what? Governor Cuomo actually cares more about 2020 in the presidential race than he cares about anyone in New York. And that's just a fact of, look at the bills he's put out there and what he's saying and how he's driven out 1.2 million plus people from New York and is driving up our taxes massively. I mean, that's insane. And we can't talk about that because some guy in Twitter or on Facebook or YouTube, they happen to be Democrats and they don't like me saying the truth about what Governor Cuomo is doing and how his policies are impacting the actual people. I mean, I'm in the Broome County region, and we're looking at higher than national, in fact, higher than New York State levels of unemployment. I believe we're about 5.8% last time I checked. And that's higher than everywhere else. And that's because of the policies of Governor Cuomo and the Democratic Assembly. They're hurting us, increasing our property taxes and holding back any kind of new businesses and their business unfriendliness, where we rate either 49th or 50th, depending on who you ask on any given day in terms of the ranking systems and some of the news media out there. And yet I can't say that. That's insulting. That's horrible. How dare they not do that based on their stated policy of what is censored and not censored, and yet they're not even consistent with that. But they'll let Antifa speak. They'll let Hamas speak. Did you know that there are I stopped counting at 55. There are 55 pages on Facebook for Antifa active right now. These are people who are considered domestic terrorists in the United States. And yet, with that acknowledgement that the federal government and the governor of California and several of the cities of California have acknowledged that Antifa are thugs and violent criminals, Facebook's like, oh no, they can have all their pages and talk all day long. But at the same time, they're out there suppressing the right. People who are religious, like Diamond and Silk, my organization, and many others, that they're suppressing us, not allowing us to reach people because we're violating their content. We're not safe for the community. I don't know about anyone else, but I've never been out and I don't advocate violence. I've never been involved with violence, but yet they're going to tell me I'm bad for Facebook. But Antifa, which actively looks to destroy private property and actively looks to disrupt people's lives by blocking off roads, that wants to go out there and kill our police. This kind of organization, that's the ones that they're saying, well, that's fine that's good for the economy. That's great for the community. Are you kidding me? This is something that's very aggravating. And so that's what I was speaking about at SUNY Broome in part of my speech. And I do advise people, check it out. I have approximately 50 sources on that, which you will be able to see. I list all of them at the end of the speech. You'll be able to read through it or watch the video. And I provide every single source so that you can look at it and say, well, Mike, either you got it right or you got it wrong, or, well, at least I can understand where you're getting your information from. And then you can make your own decision on that and figure out what you think about it, because I think that's the most important thing. Now, I've been saying a lot, but I also want to mention to Scott. Scott asked a question. I have a question for you about freedom of speech. Spectrum has denied Brindisi's campaign running an ad that bashes Spectrum directly at the beginning of the ad. I don't think Spectrum should have to run the ad, but it would be like to hear, but you'd like to hear my input. Okay. And that's an important one. So let's actually, and I've heard a couple of people say that. And I see Kevin, by the way, Sandy Salas is with us. Love you, Sandy. Kevin Dyer's here, and it seems like, Kevin, don't worry. It's Facebook. The censors are cutting out some people so they don't get to hear the whole thing, but I will be publishing it on the No Sound Bites Allowed podcast, so you'll be able to see it. I see Tyler Toomey's here with us as well. And so I want to say hello to everybody there, and I thank you for your support. Now, I want to get to the spectrum. And we've seen Anthony Brindisi. He's running for the New York 22nd District. He is a Democrat. This is one of his attack ads against our incumbent, which is Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. And he's alleging that Spectrum has benefited disproportionately because of the Republican Party and Claudia Tenney. And he put out an ad that attacked Spectrum as a bad company and a reason for him to be elected. And Spectrum, quite honestly, as a private business, said, I don't want to run an ad against ourselves. That's like me saying, hey, I'm going to pay someone to not let people see what I'm doing. That's crazy. No business would do that. So, and he sued for that and forced Spectrum to be able to accept his voice. Now, we see that a lot. When the left doesn't like something, they force people to be able to accept their ideas. So whether or not you want to hear it, you must hear it. But if it's on the right, well, then they're more than happy to restrict it. As I said, Twitter's already done it, 600,000 people. We've heard Facebook do it. In fact, Facebook COO Sandra Sandberg had admitted that Facebook instructed its censors to prioritize the censorship so that white men, in particular, they were prioritizing censoring black children versus white men. They were doing that up until last year when they got caught doing it. So there is a hierarchy and censorship that's being done, especially based on politics, in Facebook, in Twitter, and many other sources. So let me bring it back to, again, on Spectrum. So is that the same thing as Spectrum saying, hey, we're very upset and we don't want to, they don't want to cover this story? See, it's one thing to say for a private business, I'm not required to carry any commercial, especially a commercial against ourselves. That's just not right. So I support them as a private business saying, we don't want to cover that. And every other news program or any other broadcaster, every other medium can cover this idea. Okay, fine. And that's perfectly fine. Do that. Get newspaper ads and put it out there. But I shouldn't be required to bash myself just because I am a news media source. No, that's not, I'm still a private business. And it's an advertisement. It's not like they're saying, oh, this is critical information on the race. No, it's not. This is his opinion about a private business, and he's attributed it to conservatives. So, no, I don't agree with forcing, and that's, again, these are Democrats forcing people to hear their opinion, whether you want to or not. Whether a private business chooses to do something or not, they don't care. It's you must do what I say. That's a very troubling trend. He's forcing them to carry content that they would not normally carry. You know what that's called? That's called brainwashing. It's called compelled speech. They are compelling people to hear something that was not necessarily something they could choose to hear. That station is not allowed to make a choice. And that's bad. If you can compel a business to carry messages, and there's actually a Supreme Court law about this. I believe this was the case under Chief Justice Berger in 1977, that the government cannot compel a business to promote a message if that person does not want to promote that message. They're actually fighting, and I don't know how Brindisi, obviously no one wants to go to the Supreme Court on this because it's going to take forever, and the election's in November. But there is actually a Supreme Court case, which I covered in my speech on Monday, by Chief Justice Berger in 1977 that says the government cannot compel you to put out a message that you don't agree with as a business or as a person. But yet we're seeing Democrats that are saying, no, that doesn't matter. That's not important. The Supreme Court doesn't count. You must carry the message that we want to have. That's bad. That never has a positive outcome. Because if the government can compel you to do one thing, they can compel you to do anything. And they can restrict anyone's voice if they can compel people to only hear the message they want out there. So this is a way bigger issue than just the New York 22nd race. It's a way bigger issue than Anthony Brindisi's opinion about what's happening with Spectrum. And by the way, let's actually look at this. When Anthony Brindisi's talking about Spectrum, what's he talking about? He's talking about the policy that Governor Cuomo and the New York State Assembly allowed to happen. It was Governor Cuomo and Anthony Brindisi voting and supporting Governor Cuomo that initially set up the monopoly that Spectrum has. That's the only reason why Spectrum has a monopoly, because the Democrats, in particular Anthony Brindisi, Governor Cuomo, and the Assembly, they gave them a monopoly. And now they're upset that this monopoly may or may not be doing some negative things. Well, you gave them that, and you set up the rules for Spectrum to be able to operate as a monopoly in this state. So they made bad rules, bad regulations, and gave power to a monopoly that they created, and yet somehow that's the Republicans' fault. How's it the Republicans' fault when you made the rules? I mean, that's the question I would love to have someone ask Anthony Brindisi. Mr. Brindisi, I'm asking this directly to Anthony Brindisi. I've talked to him many times. He won't speak with me now that he's out for the election, and he won't answer my questions, though he's answered them in 2015, 2014, 2016. Now he doesn't want to talk to me because he's running for an election. But I want to see Anthony answer the question, which is a very simple question. Hey, Anthony, why did you create a monopoly and allow in those rules for that monopoly the ability for them to abuse the public? That's what you and Governor Cuomo decided on. Don't blame someone else because that company made a donation. That's not the problem. Whether they donated to anyone, I don't care. That's not the problem. The problem is, why did you create a monopoly in the first place? Why did you kill competition so that people don't have a choice? And if this company is raising up its cost because people don't have a choice and they're stuck with it, then that's your fault. You gave them that opportunity. Why not if you're going to have all this regulation in New York State, at least make it be consistent and make sense. But they're not. And then they're going to blame someone else for something that he decided, that he helped put in place. But, no one can talk about that because, when I'm on Facebook, they're going to censor and cut out people while I'm talking. I'm going to be on Twitter, and Twitter's going to have a program that censors 600,000 people who are speaking on the right and try and hide us so that no one can hear about it. That's insulting. That they're going to hide us because I can ask the question that should be asked of Anthony Brindisi as he's running this commercial about Spectrum. The real question is, Mr. Brindisi, why did you put out that monopoly? Why did you get that monopoly out there with Governor Cuomo? But that's an ad that, I can't put out there. But he's fighting to compel speech, to make a company and people put out a message for the government because he's running for a government office, even though he's a private citizen. He's actually a sitting assemblyman. So he is a representative of the government forcing a company to compel speech that they did not want to have in violation of the 1977 Supreme Court Justice ruling with Chief Justice Berger. That's just sad. And I know a lot of people don't follow this stuff, but I do. So I did want to go into that. And thank you, by the way, Scott, for that. I hope that answered your question. And I know it gets me a little livid, and I'm going through it a little quickly, but hopefully that answered a bit of it. That no, I don't believe that any business should be compelled to speak for the government because that has already been decided by the Supreme Court. I don't believe that he's putting out a proper message because he's misinterpreting the facts that are important. And I don't agree with government creating monopolies, which are always going to be at a disadvantage to the public because, again, that's the government picking winners and losers. And the government, as we know, is always wrong when they do that every single time. So I just want to make sure that was out there. And I hope I answered your question. By the way, I do want to say hello to a few people who joined in while I was on that. I said Tyler Toomey, Michael Lurie, Ben Gonzalez, Sophia. Sophia is here. Sophia Rosinetti, who's running for the this Binghamton City Council second district. and she's on, and I'm sure she's probably walking around talking to many of her constituents in the area and letting them know about her and where she stands for the race, and probably listen to me in between those door knockings. So I thank you, Sophia, for doing that. I know you're working real hard, and I'm looking forward to seeing you win again and have a great election in November. I see also Kirsten Lee is here, and hello, Kirsten. It's nice to see you. Whoa, wait a minute. I don't even know what this page just did. It just flipped. All right. The video just flipped on me. I don't know why I turned around. There it is. Okay. Sorry about that. That's part of the other part of the studio with some of the lights I usually use. And I see Vix Furman is here as well. And Victor is listening in. So I thank you and watching. And I know Victor was there at the speech at SUNY Broome College when I was speaking about the First Amendment and all of our rights and the freedom that we're being denied consistently, which is insulting. So I did want to speak about that. Now, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to go over. And by the way, at any point, people just let me know. Come in with your questions. Tell me what you're thinking, and I'm here for you. I'm here to talk with you and talk about the issues you think are important, because I know we don't get to hear that often enough. There's not enough time where people can actually just ask an in-depth question, get an in-depth answer, and not some 30-second soundbite that someone is out there just to get a headline on. And that's horrible, because it answers nothing and does nothing for anyone. And in fact, I have a question from Kevin. Kevin says, just yesterday, a gubernatorial candidate posted a TV commercial, which was shared all over Facebook, got zucked. We have reposted and are resharing. Okay. I don't know whose commercial you're speaking about. There may be a commercial from Mark Molinaro. It could be from Larry Sharp. I know those are the two main individuals. Could have been someone else. But again, it's a great example. Here it is, individuals putting out a message and without violating any of the terms. And unlike with Spectrum, this is not tearing against the company that's putting it out there. So it's not a commercial that's against, none of the commercials in the governor's race are saying, well, Facebook is horrible or Twitter's horrible, which would give them a reason to say, well, I don't want to carry that. Okay. We're talking about, these are issue related, speaking about the issue, which has nothing to do with the private business. And they're out there and they're censoring that. So by doing this, they're actually saying that they're voting for Governor Cuomo at the expense of the people having a choice and being informed and having a question like I want to ask and saying, okay, Mr. Brindisi, tell me the truth about this Spectrum deal. Why did you create a monopoly? Someone can ask that question about Governor Cuomo, and they're saying, no, you can't do that. And it was Larry Sharp, who I've spoken to, and I've done an interview with him, and he gave me an hour and a half. I'm going to be talking to his lieutenant governor pick on Monday, doing an interview with him about that race. And he's going to be able to speak unlimited. So we're going to have a great conversation there. But I think it's wrong for Facebook. I mean, that's, again, they're compelling speech. When you deny people the ability to hear both sides of an argument, if you're favoring only one side of the argument, if you're denying or censoring and hiding people, not because anyone's done something wrong, but because you don't like it, that's censorship, and that is compelled speech. They want people to think only one way, and that is always worked out to be bad for every government throughout history. When people can't speak and they can only say what the government wants, then that always works out badly. And that's why the Supreme Court said, you can't do it. And yet we're seeing Democrats running around counting on the fact that no one's looked up the law, as I have, and saying, well, we can do that. We can make you hear our speech and make you only hear what we want to say. And that's a problem. I really just don't like that. By the way, on Monday, I mentioned Larry Sharp. There is going to be the Americans for Restoring the Constitution annually, every year, has a forum for the candidates. Now, this is not a debate, but it allows you, the public, to give a question to any of the candidates who are running for local races, statewide races, and federal races in the New York 22nd, in particular, the Broome County, but also the New York 22nd region, and ask those candidates questions about why they're running and what they can do for you and what they expect to stand for. You can ask that. And that's held at the Vestal Public Library, and that will be on Monday. And there is a sign-in because there's limited space, only 99 seats. But you can be there, and I will be covering that as I do every year. This is something that's happened every year, going back to at least 2012 that I can recall. And so this is not a debate, but it's the candidates answering your questions directly, which I love about it. So it's a candidate forum. And I know that Lieutenant Governor candidate Andrew Hollister, who I know and I've spoken to over the years, but he's going to be there at the event to answer your questions. And I know that Congresswoman Claudia Tenney will be at the event. She's gone many times before, and she'll be there to answer the public's questions and really give some answers to people. And we see that Governor Cuomo has denied the opportunity for people in upstate New York to ask him a question again. And he won't even respond to the request that was made by the AFRTC to be at this event. We know that Kirsten Gillibrand has denied any contact and won't speak. And she's always denied, and by the way, Governor Cuomo too, has always denied being able to be at this event because they don't want to answer the public's questions. I know that Anthony Brindisi has also ignored this and doesn't want to show up because he doesn't want to answer any of the public's questions. He just wants to compel companies to only say what he wants to say, and he doesn't want to actually answer anyone about any of the things that could be a question, like why is he taking away people's homes? Literally, he has created a situation with the Utica Hospital where he's taking away people's homes. He's removing a nonprofit organization. He's taking away businesses, and because it's eminent domain, and he's just kicking them out for a deal that he wants because he wants it and not because of anything better. And by the way, that's also being backed by Governor Cuomo with a guaranteed $300 million. And I know this, and I can say this because it's in an email with Anthony Brindisi as part of the email recipients that were found by a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request that Anthony had tried to hide from the public. And if Anthony wants to dispute that, please come on this show and I'll do an interview with you as long as you want, Anthony. We can speak as much as you want because that's what I do with all the politicians and candidates that I speak with in every race. And I will give you all day long to answer my questions if you think I'm wrong. And if you don't want to do that, go to court, sue me, and watch me win because I have my sources absolutely 100% correct on this, as he knows, which is why he doesn't want to talk about it. So that's another thing that's, I think, very important and worth talking about. These are some of the big things that are going on. And it's funny because there's so few people who are actually talking about these things. So few people getting involved. And I really hate when I hear over and over again that Facebook, that YouTube, that Twitter, that social media sources, the actual major news media are denying people information that will make a difference in your lives every day. And we have to stand up for that. We have to say you can't do that. They're violating the literally decisions by the Supreme Court that are 40 years old. And they're expecting, well, we can just do that because people don't care. You got to get out and vote. You have to get out and vote. You have to have your voice heard and make sure that they know that if they do this, the fear of God, the power of the people, the 10th Amendment is going to be coming down on them, and they will not get away with this. That is something that we have to make sure that they're reminded of, because it's when they're afraid, they see a couple thousand hits on, say, a video like this, or one of the podcasts that I do at the No Sound Bites Allowed podcast, or one of the articles I do at mvass.com. They get scared because that means these are people who are going to vote, take them out of power, and they won't be able to get away with the things that they've been doing for so long. We have to hold them accountable. And I would say that, and that's not just on the left. I'll say that for the right. I'll say that for the center, for conservatives, and for libertarians, and for the far left, citizen action, Antifa, Black Lives Matters. It applies to everyone equally. We have to hold everyone accountable. And to do that, we have to be able to speak without hitting just, 30-second sound bites or little headlines that don't tell you anything. And if anything, misinform people by giving them the wrong idea of what's really going on, or distracting them with, yes, see, I was just holding my hand here. And of course that means, KKK for some unreasonable reason, rather than I'm just moving my hand, or that I'm saying that I'm how I'm feeling. But instead, according to some, because they're misinforming people, suddenly it's some kind of gang sign. Really? Come on, people. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be honest with each other. That's not what it is. People make movements, and sometimes that's just what it is. But no, we're being misinformed. Again, that's another way of compelling speech, and I'm against that. I can't stand that. And it scares me. It upsets me. Massively upsets me. I should mention a little bit about this. Luma, by the way, was excellent this year. 3 days, had great crowds. I was out there and some of the wonderful light shows, and just seeing all the crowds of people, so many people that I couldn't even talk to everyone. I spent a half hour reaching one of my DC contacts. And yes, I have people who are not Republicans in DC and other parts of the nation that speak with me about issues. And they happen to be up in Binghamton for Luma. They came all the way up from DC just to go to our Luma event, and also to be able to speak with me. It was a great conversation. Got to learn some very informational. It was a very instructive, informational conversation. So I had a great time with that. I also see Scott Baker is here, and he's watching, and I hope I see everybody popping in and out. I hope Facebook censors are not too severe so that everyone can still understand what we've been talking about, which for the most part has been about the First Amendment, our freedom of speech, about compelled speech, the way that the censorship that we're seeing on the internet is affecting our lives. And I have to tell you, it's affecting the younger generation far more than the older generation. I literally just came from an event where I was setting up a meeting with, for a future interview with one of our local politicians. And when I was speaking with him, I had another person who was there, and just a regular civilian, who's telling me about how their 6-year-old granddaughter is looking at TV, and their answer was, well, TV said that another politician is a racist, that TV said that these people are trying to hurt people because the TV said so. And whether or not you actually tell that kid proof, they're like, no, it can't be true because the TV said so. We're in a dangerous time. When we see, and these kids are loving Facebook and social media and the internet, like we all do. But think about it. What are they getting? When we know that they are actively being compelled to think a certain way, and we're denying them the opportunity to hear from both sides or multiple sides on an issue, they're being brainwashed, in effect. That's terrifying, which is why I do this program, because I believe we need more information, more ability to hear what everyone thinks, and to hear more than just one side of the issue, and to know that there are people out there like Scott Baker, like Sophia Resinetti, like I was just speaking with Dr. Giovanni Scaringi, and Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, who I've spoken to our candidates out there, Nick Libis, talking to George Bizama as examples, to my future conversation with Andrew Hollister. I've spoken with Larry Sharp. These are people that we need to hear from, to hear their different views, and also Mark Molinaro as well, and Julie Killian. So not just one point of view, but all of them. And to understand in detail, what are they really doing? What are they really promising to do, so that we can make the best choice possible? Because we are this government at the end of the day. And with an election coming up in 50 some odd days, we need to know, what do they really stand for? What are they really going to do? Is it really going to benefit us? And that's why I do this, because you need to have information, real information, full sources, so you can make up your mind yourself. And I hope I do that. I think I do that well, and I hope everyone agrees. And that's why I have so many politicians on, especially in the election year, to be able to just speak, not in just 30 seconds, but give them as much time as they need so that they can really be able to answer stuff for us. And I see Vic was sending me a link about natural gas. I'm not sure what he's looking at, but since I'm in the middle of a conversation with the public, I can't really look at that. If there's a specific question in there, please let me know what it is, Vic, and so I can address that. But so that's one of the things that we've been talking about. And I know for people who don't know, Victor Furman is a very strong advocate for natural gas in New York State. And so that's an ongoing issue and a big question in our state, and it's affecting our economy as well. So he has a very interesting voice. Check that out if you'd like. We've been talking about a lot of things, and I know the show's been going, and I started a little bit late, as I mentioned. So now it's about 1:30. Wow. Time flies. And I know normally the show ends at about 1:30. I'm going to go a little bit longer with this, and then I'll go for it. It's about indoctrination. Well, yeah, there is a lot of indoctrination in our schools, on our TVs, when we really look at it. I mean, we're being honest here. When you're only hearing one side and you're seeing the other side denied the opportunity to speak, that's indoctrination. It's compelled speech. We all should be very upset with that. And I'm sure it happens in natural gas. It happens in politics. It addresses a lot of issues. So it's not just one thing. It's all across the board. And it's important. And that's why I'm very, very livid about it, and why I get very incensed about it. And I did mention, I'm just making sure. So at the very start of this string, I was talking about on Monday at the Vestal Public Library, the Americans for Restoring the Constitution are having a candidate forum. Anthony Brindisi is not showing up. Governor Cuomo is not showing up. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is not showing up because they don't care what the people think in Binghamton, in Broome County, and in the New York 22nd. They really aren't interested in speaking to us because they don't think we matter. And I find that upsetting, and I think you should too. And I would say, hey, send them a message on Twitter, on Facebook, and say they should show up and they should be able to answer your questions at a candidate forum where you get to ask the candidates a question. They should show up because they want your vote. They're telling you to vote for them, so they should show up and they should answer your questions so that they can earn your vote, because it should never be guaranteed. What's the link to what I wrote about? Oh, that was the link. Yes. Victor mentions that he has a link to an SAT test and how it's indoctrinating children. Okay. So people can check that out when they look through. And by the way, Kevin Varney has joined us. I thank you, Kevin, for taking some time out and being able to be with us. So I think these are a lot of important things, especially when we're looking at an election right around the corner. We need to make sure they know they need to answer our questions. And I didn't even get into some of the other crazy stuff that's happening, that there is in California, they have just passed a law, which was the California State Senate Bill 826, mandating that there is no gender, that they're removing genders for teaching kids. And that's a bill that's crazy. And I guarantee you, if California is doing it, New York State's going to do it almost immediately. That they're going to mandate how we look at gender for kids and how we're going to have transsexual kids at 5 years old. That's what they want. I disagree with that. I don't believe any 5-year-old or any 10-year-old or any, and possibly even 15-year-olds, but definitely kids that are preteen, they don't know enough about themselves to be able to tell us with absolute clarity that they're some transgender and born in the wrong body. They need time to develop and understand and learn about the consequences before we start pumping them full of drugs because it promotes a specific partisan goal. And these people, and when we are legislating that we're going to compel the way kids are thinking, compel the way that they're speaking, about their own bodies that have not developed yet, we are potentially damaging a generation or two for the rest of their lives. And if they've made the wrong choice because we programmed them to believe a certain thing, because we didn't allow them to hear anyone else speaking about the issue and talking about it and having the opportunity to learn both sides of an issue and to figure it out for themselves, if we just compel them, then that's torture. And that's horrible. And someone should be held accountable for that, and we should throw them in jail. I'm looking forward to the first, and I'm sad to say this because it shouldn't happen, but I'm looking forward to the first kid who was like 10 years old, told that he or she should be some kind of transgender, whatever else, and they decide in their 20s that, hey, you have just ruined my life because I made a choice because you compelled me to have that choice before I knew what I was doing. And, since you've ruined my life, I want to sue you for that. And I think that'll be fantastic that we have that case. It's a shame that it will destroy some people's lives to get there, but we need to have that case because it's wrong. And again, this is all about free speech. We should be able to have this discussion. And if someone thinks I'm wrong, that's okay. Tell me. Let's talk about that. I'll do an entire program about it. Let's have a conversation about that, about what the consequences are and what we think is the right best path to go forward. Because if we're not having that conversation and we're only doing what we're told because we're not able to speak about it and we don't know there's another choice out there, then that's it. We're screwed. That's no longer democracy. That's no longer a representative democracy or any other form of democracy. It's not even socialism. It's straight up a dictatorship. And that's horrible. And we can't allow that. By the way, I see that we had Rebecca O'Brien join us, and it's good to see you there, Rebecca. Just at the end of my program, though, but I did want to thank you for checking it out. And you can always go back either on the video on Facebook, because I know it's been cutting out a lot of people. It started off with Facebook censoring it right up front, so not everyone's heard it. So you can go to the No Sound Bites Allowed podcast later today, and you'll be able to see that there as well. And Victor mentioned that there is some documentation about people having their lives damaged because they have been compelled to think that they are transgender when they are not, and therefore destroying their lives. And that's something that more of us should talk about. Not to say that someone is or isn't or shouldn't have the opportunity, but to make sure that we're not compelling them to do something that's going to damage their lives forever just because some politician says that's what he wants. It's horrible. And I do see that Melanie has just joined us as well. Melanie Turbos, I thank you. And Melanie, you're catching me just about at the end here. It's an hour and a half. I started a little bit late because I was working on setting up another interview with a politician that'll be involved in the election. And so hopefully we'll have that on for you very, very soon, hopefully on Wednesday, because I try and reach out to all the politicians on the left, on the right, in the center, everybody, whether they're libertarians, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, probably even Citizen Action. If Matt Ryan wanted to get on and talk about why he wants to be an advocate in the office of sheriff, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with him and let him explain why his personal preference politically should overrule being a sheriff, and the public safety. If he wants to have that conversation, I'll have it with him all day long if he wants. So far, he hasn't, but he has the invitation, and I won't censor a word of it, unlike Facebook, unlike Twitter, and all the other social media. I don't censor. When someone says something on the program, I publish it. Every word. No matter what they say. Because that's the way we learn. And we make better choices. And I wish they would do that more often in our media, especially our social media. Because kids are being affected by this. Our lives are being affected by this. And it is absolutely serious. But I've had a lot of conversation here. It's taken a little bit longer than I expected. I apologize for being a little bit short today and starting a little late, as I said. But I look forward to hearing from everyone very soon. Please keep an eye out for my exclusive interview with Major Collins of the Thunderbirds and my exclusive a conversation with the Orange County Executive, Steve Newhouse, which I'll have video out, and that'll be coming out later today. And I look forward to seeing everyone at Vestal Public Library for the candidate forum, so that you can speak to our constituents and ask them for real answers to your real questions, and not somebody on Twitter, giving you a headline. Get the real answer so that you know who you want to vote for sure. But with that said, I thank everyone. I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon, and I'll be back. This is Michael Voss with No Sound Bites Allowed. Thank you.